Welcome to Empowering Homeschool Conversations, your authority in navigating the world of homeschooling diverse learners. Featuring Peggy Ployer from SPED Homeschool, Annie Yorty from AnnieYorty.com, Leilani Melendez from Living with Eve, Stephanie Buckwalter from eLARP Learning, and Dawn Jackson from Dawn Jackson Educational Consulting and Tutoring. With over 75 years of combined homeschooling expertise, experiences, and perspectives, this group is eager to share their wealth of wisdom to empower your homeschooling journey. So grab your favorite mug, settle in, and get ready for insightful discussions, valuable insights, and practical tips. Give your homeschool the power boost it needs to successfully educate the unique learners in your home.
Hey friends, and welcome back to Empowering Homeschool Conversations. I'm so glad you're joining us today, whether you're washing dishes, wrangling little ones, or finally sitting down for a minute with a cup of something more, you're in good company. Today's episode's a little different. We don't just have a guest joining us, but we have almost our whole team here to have an honest, open conversation about something that's so real for every homeschool parent at some point, emotional overwhelm, whether it's constant demands, all the pressure to do it all right, the never-ending to-do list, or just carrying the weight of so much for our kids. Emotional overload can sneak in, and suddenly it feels like just too much. So we're going to talk about it, what it looks like, how we've experienced, what's helped us go through it, and how we can offer each other grace along the way. And before we dive in, don't forget to check out Homeschool Heroes at spedhomeschool.com. If you're in a hard season and need support, encouragement, or just some practical tools for making things easier, there's a treasure trove waiting for you there. All right, ladies, let's jump into this conversation. Overcoming emotional overwhelm in homeschooling. You ready? Maybe.
Ready to go. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So what does emotional overwhelm look like for you personally? I know it can be different. Different people handle it differently. So let's give it some faces.
Well, emotional overwhelm has looked different over time for me.
Oh, good point.
And initially in the early days when I was still younger and full of energy, it more came out in anger. Like it was easy to get angry at people because my situation made me angry. And then over time, I don't know if it was age or exhaustion or whatever, then it became more shutting down. So originally I would just get, anger would come out. And then later it was more just shutting down or thinking like, I don't care. I don't care anymore. I just don't care. And just kind of shutting down.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I would say I have sort of the same experience where it's tempered over time, but initially when I feel overwhelmed, I'll tend to just push harder, and not just myself, but my kids, just keep pushing them to do what I expected to happen. And, and of course that never really turns out well. So, but over time, and then I can kind of go the other direction a little bit when I get to the point where that even isn't working. I'll get to where I sort of avoid the priorities in my life, but because they seem harder. So I find something that helps me escape from it, the feelings or whatever, and avoid it. So yeah, it depends where I'm at in the flow of it, but yeah, none of that works out real well.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I can relate with both of you and all of that. And, I just catch myself sometimes, sitting on the couch going, I just don't want to do a thing. I just want to sit here. And I don't even want to sit here. I'll like go outside and just like lay down on the concrete and fall asleep. I've done that multiple times just in the back. Well, we have a pool, but next to the pool, and I'm out and just want to check out of life. Yeah, absolutely. What about you, Dawn?
Yeah, I think for me, when I think about that, it always had to do with getting enough rest. And if I didn't get enough sleep, if I was doing too much or burning the candle at both ends, that happened pretty much after my third child. I just felt like my duties and all the different things I was trying to do. I was running a business, and then homeschooling, having a baby. Like, it was just a lot. And, but I didn't like have that compassion for myself to say, you're doing too much, you're doing a lot. And so I just remember feeling really worn, like just worn.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a very good word for it. I think you think back to like the Velveteen Rabbit and all the fur being gone. It's like, no, this hurts. I don't want it anymore.
Absolutely.
So can you think of a specific moment when you felt like everything was just too much? What was going on? Can you think back to anything like that?
One comes to mind right away for me. Oh my. There was one year where it was like the spring. So we were, it was early in the spring. So we were in the thick of it. My husband was away. We were selling our house. We were in the middle of moving, and my son got chicken pox. And then one night we had this water leak that just overnight, I woke up in the middle of the night, discovered water everywhere. I mean, not a drop to drink, if you remember the rhyme of the Ancient Mariner. But it was like, I just lost it, and but yeah, that was it happens, sometimes it's just stuff that just happens from the outside. We don't have control over that. Sometimes we create our own emotional overwhelm with what we take on, but sometimes it just happens.
Absolutely. Yes. Anybody else? That's like 3 things that would send most people over the top all at once. Oh, crazy.
For me, it's not one moment, it's many moments, but it's like Groundhog Day. It's the same moment over and over.
Oh,
and
yes.
that is dealing with irrational behaviors that just don't make sense. Because when a kid's in fight or flight, you can't reason with them. There's no making sense of the behavior. There's no way to ask if your child is nonverbal like mine. And it's kind of a one-sided conversation. And so it's the Groundhog Day of irrational behavior for me.
Yeah. I remember when we had our 3 foster kids that we were doing emergency foster care for, and I was getting 2 hours of sleep at night. And and they were all, they were toddlers. One was preschool, the other 2 were toddlers, the twins, and I lost it. I just like crumpled into a mess on the floor, and I'm like, I can't do this anymore. The trauma that they were trying to deal with and not being able to express it, the support that I was not getting, even though I'd asked multiple places for it. That was what broke the camel's back, and ended up they had to shift to other family members because our family just was falling apart. And that's hard, because it was something that we really felt like we were called to do. But then after praying more, after all that changed, God just really gave us peace that their time with us was for a time. It wasn't that we were called to care for them long term. But I think you have to come to a place of healing in that, or resolution, because otherwise the overwhelm can just continue to eat at you even when it's over. And we forget about that side of overwhelm, that we can beat ourselves up that we fell apart. Yet we're human. We
feel like a failure.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Peggy, that's a lot. I don't know if I could have ever done that. No way.
It was.
That sounds like amazing. I think for me, when I think of overwhelm, when I was homeschooling, it had a lot to do with this idea that I had to do so much and have things perfect. And I was at that time trying to recreate the classroom in my home. So especially like around that time when I would get all the new curriculum, there was just this huge feeling of, I have to figure all of this out. I have to know how this is going to work. I have to create a schedule. And I've shared this before on our talks, but, I did the big schedule thing, but I never looked at it, because that's just part of my brain. But I made it. It was pretty. And, but there was just that feeling of, I have to do all these things. And you guys, I didn't have YouTube. Could you imagine? I would have been a psycho. They would have had to lock me up. Thank God. I was just gleaning stuff from my friends and these homeschool conventions. And I just had these ideas that I had to do so much. And there was a lot of failing moments.
Yeah, I think you're pointing to some good warning signs there, Dawn, that, overwhelm is coming if you are doing this. And as a homeschool mom, watch out. Yes, that is. And like you said, nowadays, how much more are these young moms getting bombarded with than we ever were? And just crazy. What are some other warning signs that you noticed about yourself? Other than wanting to lock the bathroom door and hide in there the whole day.
Oh, you get, for me, I find myself caring more about what gets done than caring about my kids. When I'm all like consumed with the schedule and missing those cues that my kids give me, and and if I'm snapping at them or whatever, conflicts, that kind of thing can really be a sign of being overwhelmed. Also there are physical signs. Our bodies can only go so far when we're overwhelmed. So just, being tired, or maybe just always feeling panicky, that you're not getting enough done, or your thoughts just keep recycling over and over and over and you can't sleep. Things like always running late or forgetting appointments, things like that are a clue that we should pause and, take stock of things.
Yeah. Yeah. I wish somebody would have told me, if you're falling asleep while driving, that's something's wrong. I can't remember how many times I was like, oh my goodness, I can see if I can make it through the day. Oh, yes, absolutely. Anything else?
Well, like if your immune system is worn out and you're just, your adrenal glands. I remember going to a doctor at that time, a holistic doctor, and he was just saying, your adrenal glands are shot. And that's just from stress and overwhelm. And so you really want to keep, tabs on your health and how you're feeling in general every day. If you have no energy to make it through the end of the day, maybe it's time to make some changes. But I think that was definitely one of my things.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So good. But yet so real. What?
If running late is a sign of overwhelm, that's been perpetual my whole life.
Well, it's like if that's not your typical,
Okay.
If you're normally, let's talk about the norm for you as whatever your norm. If you're all that.
Maybe you're just very laid back as a person, and that's okay.
That's probably a good thing.
I know being late would make me anxious and overwhelmed in itself.
Yeah.
So what are some things that help you come back from the edge when you're overwhelmed, whether it's big or small? Deep breathing.
I have a couple of songs that from a Christian artist that I go to that have a message that is meaningful to me, and I will just sit there and listen to it. And it's interesting because actually one of them, old school album. This one guy, he used to do music. He's still alive, but he did music in the 70s. And I'll listen to his albums. I have them on YouTube. And I can just feel after about 2 or 3 songs, I can just feel, I'll just all of a sudden take a deep breath and relax even more into it. And it's nothing I'm trying to do. I'm not taking that deep breath on purpose. I can just feel the songs working on my body, on my nervous system, and things like that. And then the other one I do is I get up earlier than everybody else in the house. because if I don't, I probably wouldn't have been able to do this when I had a lot of kids at home, but now that I just have the one that I have to care for, I know when she gets up, and if I get up about 2 hours before her, that's when I have downtime, because the rest of the day, once she's up, I'm a caregiver 24/7 unless she's asleep. And so that's my downtime. And if I don't get it within 3 or 4 days, my body will respond like Dawn was talking about, where I can just feel my adrenal glands are shutting down and everything. I can actually feel my nervous system. You know the feeling you get when you're falling asleep and you can like feel your nervous system shutting down all your systems? I get that when I'm standing up. And if I'm like moving and then I just stand still, I can feel my nervous system doing that sometimes. So that's when I know I'm like way over the edge. So in that case, I just have to sleep. The only thing that takes care of that is sleep.
Oh, a good nap does wonders.
It does. Absolutely.
I'll just throw out there, a lot of times when we're very, very stressed or overwhelmed, we tend to think, like, our minds go into, what are we going to do? What am I going to do? How am I going to handle this? Whatever. But we need to tap into a power beyond our own. We need to just stop and pray. That's the source of our help. Where does our help come from? It comes from the Lord. And pray on your own, pray with your kids, help them to see that, well, they'll already see you don't have it all together. You can't really hide that from your kids, but you go to the one that does, and you're teaching them, even in those moments, they're learning some valuable skills that there is a source, and they can go to him, and we can too, and ask God for peace. Ask God to settle your spirit. Ask God to show you and guide you what's next.
Right.
Yeah, and I also I want to add to that too. Something that's been kind of new in my life lately is being very specific when you ask God for help. Like asking God for help, and whatever that looks like. It could be a person. For me, it was a friend when I was homeschooling. It was so wonderful just to get together with her. She had 4 children. I had 3. It was like a small co-op. But it was just such an encouragement to go over curriculum. We used to do art history together and art. And so it was just lovely to be able to kind of almost have downtime in a sense, even though we were still teaching and all that, but just have someone in your life. And that's why with us, with Sped Homeschool, we have the coaches to be able to come alongside. And more people are understanding the value in that, the preciousness. I talked to 2 moms yesterday that were like, we know we need coaching. We're just starting out. We don't have this down. And it's just like people are realizing the value. And I would say, if you don't have a good friend, like I did happen to have that, and I'm sure you ladies have too, but also to find someone who can collaborate, who can look into your world, give you ideas, and support you. I think that was a big thing for me. And it was a person that loved God and was encouraging me in that way as well. So it was good.
Right. Yeah. We are made for community, and we are not made to do this alone. And there's so much of the messages I think we get, like short messages about homeschooling, is, here's this great homeschool mom, all by herself doing these awesome things. And yet the community that you need to maintain that is, it's got to be either deep or wide. And, for a lot of us, our relationships are deep just because we only maybe have 1 or 2 families, as most of you just have shared, that those relationships we have to be able to cling on to a lot. And I had the same thing, as I needed those people. That was my refreshment. Once a week we got together, and I felt like I could breathe because my kids were able to interact with other kids. I was able to talk about things other than with my spouse. And they were able to, be truthful to me about what was really going on that I was missing too. To have friends that could talk you through that stuff. Because we miss so much when we are overwhelmed. We have that tunnel vision, and we do need other people to come in and to help us.
Right.
So, yeah.
I I'm also thinking like, wait, we have two different kinds of overwhelming situation. Like one is like in the moment, there's a situation or, a period of time that's just overwhelming.
Yeah.
Another one is like when it's chronic, and it's just constantly and it's building and building and over a longer period of time. You also need to just when you see it like that, where it's just this constant and you're getting super discouraged and thinking about quitting, you really need to take, a day or a weekend or whatever and evaluate your practices. What are you doing? How are you, what are your expectations? Are they in line with reality? Are they realistic? And just think about, try to pinpoint that area of life or those areas that are causing the extra stress. And, some can be changed, some can't, of course. Our kids are going to be our kids, whatever, and their needs can be stressful. But maybe there's a different way that you can organize your life, or that will help reduce that chronic state of overwhelm.
Absolutely. Yeah. And Annie, you said a really good things about, some things you can do and can't do. And, and there's also things that you can take out. We forget that there's things we can remove to make the situation better. Have any of you ever experienced something like that when you took something out that you thought you needed, and it actually made it less overwhelming?
House cleaning. It was just after my third child. I think after my third child, now that I'm older and wiser, I think I had some postpartum. And often when you're a homeschool parent, you're in that skip of life, right? And you're just moving. You're not really looking at, wow, maybe I'm having some postpartum. So when things start to kind of fall by the wayside, like your house cleaning, you end up, for me, it was like not a lot of compassion for myself. It was like, no, you need to do this, this, and this. And so I think when you can let those things go, even if it is that deep cleaning that you're so used to doing, when life events throw you a wrench like a new baby or something like that, you just have to close your eyes and walk away.
So true.
Not a big deal.
Yeah, it'll eventually get cleaned, and what is necessary. Yeah, that is very true. And there's other things, like even subjects, that teaching my kids, I found like getting rid of some of those was actually relieving to both of us, and healthier for their growth and our relationship too.
Yeah, when you think about the activities that sort of, they sound really good, and they are probably, but when we think about how they can sort of layer up as we just kind of like, oh, that's good, let's add that, there's another one, and they just sort of build up, and you think, well, it's like what, 1 hour a week or something like that, or a co-op, it's going to be half a day or whatever, no big deal. And then you realize, oh, there's like all this time maybe to prepare things for it, homework, or there's of course travel time. There would be a lot of things that we do, our kids do, require parental involvement to make it run. We're co-op, and then you find yourself, you've joined a co-op, and you find yourself spending all this time preparing for a class that you're teaching or helping with or whatever. So you have to consider all of that, and those things aren't all necessary. Your kids are going to turn out okay if they didn't have dance class or whatever, it's they will turn out okay. but it's you have to kind of consider the nature of your family, and just really what you really are capable of doing, and still having a peace-filled life. So no one's going to be harmed if you cut out some of those things. I know I thought they were necessary at one point in my life, but I realized on the back end, it would have been okay,
And today co-ops have changed a little bit, where oftentimes if you join a co-op, they have a plan for you. They have curriculum. They have all these expectations. If you're in this co-op, you're going to do this science, this social studies. And I think as a parent, you have to really step back and ask yourself, is this really going to benefit my child? So I'm kind of working with a family like that right now, where the daughter didn't like the Bible curriculum. She didn't like the history. She didn't like the science or whatever it was. And so now we're kind of peeling that back. And it's not, well, she didn't like it. She really, really was not thriving in it, I would say. And me, kind of, that's important to me. Some parents might say, well, you have to do it anyway. It's just, it's the rules. And that's fine if that's your rules. But if your child isn't thriving and they're pushing against it, maybe you have to look, I want to be in a co-op where I have more freedom or more choices, because having more expectations put on you can be overwhelming. I know it would have been for me. They've changed. When I was homeschooling, they've changed a lot in that respect.
I went to support groups, and the kids did a couple activities, now it's like school, and you really have to investigate all of that because there's so many demands on parents and even the kids. They just have to be certain places, certain days. And it's a very big commitment that we don't always think all about.
And if there's learning challenges, and now you're putting your child under that pressure again, it's kind of what you were trying to get away from, right? But now you're putting, and I'm not boo-hooing co-ops. I think they're wonderful. But looking at it realistically, is this the best thing for my family? I just was talking to a mom yesterday, and she was telling me that the co-op that they're in, they want to step away from that and get a more personalized plan for their children. Not what, they weren't doing anything wrong, but just having those options of what's going to work really well with my child versus a group telling me what to do. So it's just another thing, because it is stressful to have, we didn't get the math done, or we didn't get the reading done, because you're on someone else's timeline when you do that.
Right. Have any of you, and Gunn, you brought up something that was really good to think about, is making shifts. Sometimes when we get into those overwhelming places, we have to shift what we're doing in maybe a more dramatic way than just changing one or two things, but like changing it all. So any of you have a story about that, or any advice about, how to do that without, just giving everything up? That would be a big shift, but
I think it kind of comes down to making a shift is really just making a change in routine. It's when I think of, at one point, one of my boys started going to a private school. And of course, there's no bus service. So I was driving him to and from. So then our days were anchored around the, dropping him off and picking him up. And I think that actually helped, even though we had to shift everything that we were doing. If you find some anchor points in your day that you can organize around, that can really help with overwhelm, because if you don't get it done between the time he's dropped off and the time he's picked up, you don't get the homeschool done with the other kids at home, then that's it for the day. It doesn't matter. So it puts bookends. If you have bookends around your school time, sometimes that can help reduce the overwhelm. And then over time, you figure out how much you can do in that block of time. You don't get this idea that, well, I have to do all this stuff no matter how long it takes. You flip it and look,
that's
and
really
set
good.
the time, set the bookends for your school, and keep it all in there. And then it's easier because then you can plan it out. You start planning differently when you do that.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. We did that often when we had different activities that we had to be at, and we used those as bookends. I never even thought about it that way, but it seemed like it was less stressful when we knew that this is the end of the time and this is what we're going to get done. So, good point.
Yeah.
When my daughter, who has Down syndrome, was young, and really before homeschooling, but it's the same principle, I got very overwhelmed with all of her needs and trying to meet them. Going to all the appointments, doing all the things I was told to do at home, and life that created a very stressful life. No joy in that life when that's what you're really all you're focused on is your child's development. And at some point I heard I was a young Christian at that time, very young, and I heard the Bible verse from Matthew 6:33, seek first the kingdom of God and all these other things will be added to you, all the necessary things will be added. And that was a huge shift for me, where I realized that whether Alyssa could, at the time we were thinking about whether she could walk or talk or things like that. I wasn't even to the point of academics, but turning away from the focus being on her achievements and turning it towards who she was and what she was created for, to know God and to learn to trust him. That was a dramatic shift in my life that I'll never forget, where it gave me, the focal point became her, knowing God. And so that once we did that, the other things really do fall better into place.
That's so beautiful, Annie. I know that's where we're supposed to be now, right? Each of us in our daily lives, like we have no control over anything except for this moment right here, what we're doing. But really, when we just live in that existence and knowledge of knowing that what we were created for, our identity. What is our identity? Yes. I wanted to share something. I think I was born overwhelmed personally, but one thing that helped me.
Your poor mother.
Let's just make her more crazy. No, I don't know. It was like, oh, that sounds really hard. Let me do that, But one thing that really helped me a lot was I took Fridays off.
So I did too.
Yeah,
yes.
Friday was like a fun day. I can't say it was a catch-up day because that was it. I was done. By Thursday, I was done. I personally couldn't have a whole lot of things in schedule because I'm very bad at keeping that. We all know my story a little bit. So, but having those Fridays off, knowing that, okay, if it didn't happen during the week or scheduling a dentist appointment or whatever it was just a kind of a comfort to know this is a more relaxed day. We'll go take a field trip. We'll hang out with our friends, go swimming or whatever it was. But it was just nice to just go, we're just going to do school for 4 days. But in my mind, we were always homeschooling. And probably you guys were thinking that too. Like the minute they came out of the womb, we're reading it to them in the womb and, read them as soon as they're singing to them or whatever. And so, but I think having like a plan like that and I wasn't horrible about keeping a schedule. Like I said, it had the big board, it was there, but I was kind of a more fluid homeschooler. Like we're going to get to math eventually. Yes, you're in third grade, but we're going to teach you that, I promise, no, I'm kidding. But I know they're going to come after me now. They all learned math. They all went to college. So
yeah. I mean, that's the reality of it though, is that, life is school and our kids are learning and we don't always have to have the books out, and we will get overwhelmed if we allow that curriculum to control us. We cannot do that. We have to be the one that picks and chooses how we use those tools that are wonderful, but not tools that were made to control our lives. Yeah, that's where the divide has to happen. And, just kind of thinking on that, there is a lot of pressure right now to do it all. What advice do you have for moms who feel like they just are overwhelmed with trying to keep up?
Keeping up, that's the key words right there. What are we keeping up with?
Yeah.
some image in our mind that we've created from social media or from friends that we watch, and we can learn from other people and work alongside of other people, but we really need to be careful of that trap of comparison. Because we are all unique. Our families have unique situations. And I think comparison is the devil's playground. I mean, the minute you start doing that, you are going to either elevate yourself in pride or feel like in the depths of despair because you haven't made it, you haven't done it all and kept up with others. So, we just need to find a way to, if that means get off of social media, stop reading so much of, because you're just seeing this little picture someone's created. And even with friends, friends can do that too. I would like to say we should all be transparent with one another about our struggles, but, we aren't always. And, but do understand that there are things that just stop the comparing. Just be you and be satisfied in what you've got. And it's hard to do, I know that, but you got to rein that in when you sense yourself feeling that discontent because you're looking around.
Yeah. I think too, the struggle is when a lot of us, became moms, when we started homeschooling, we didn't really know who we were.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And what was that road of self-discovery for you in the middle of that overwhelm?
Was that a new question?
I kind of changed one of them. I'm sorry. Finding your identity. For me, I left a career that I thought I was this great engineer, and then I came home and I had these kids that were out of control. I couldn't control them, like team meetings that I had at work. And God taught me so many lessons and also taught me just what a creative person I am, that I thought I never had any creativity in any of my bones. But it kind of took me getting to the end of my rope and showing me that this isn't my rope at all. I need to switch.
Was that a pun?
That's
kind of, yes.
That's so true. We come into this, I certainly did not plan to homeschool. And I think God used homeschooling to teach me about me more than to teach my kids even. But I certainly learned a lot about myself. He revealed some really cool things, that I didn't really think I had in me. And he revealed some not so cool things, that I had in me too. And so he's working all that out through homeschooling in us while, we're trying to do this task with our kids. But there's a lot of growing pains, and we do look to other people. We often, as humans, we're in a community. We do imitate other people. We can learn from them. But then at some point, we have to take all that we've learned and sift through it and see what's right for us. And and just continue to go to God and understand your value to him is not wrapped up in how well you homeschool, how your kids turn out. It's none of that. And when we get our sense of identity and sense of value out of that place and into what God says about us, then we do have a lot more peace with whatever is going on. Those circumstances don't throw us into that state of overwhelm that we're talking about.
Yeah, that's beautiful, Annie. Good way to summarize that.
I kind of didn't really ever figure out the identity piece until years later. I was pretty consumed with my identity being wrapped up in a mother and a wife and a homeschool person and a business person and all those things. And even though I was a daughter of the king, I can honestly say that my walk was not like, I mean, I was a Christian. I was going to church. I was having Bible study in the home, but my faith really, like, comparing it now, I guess, is what I'm doing. Like comparing to who I am now and how I live my life now with total dependency, totally knowing who I am in the Lord. And it has nothing to do with who I am as a mother or any of those other parts, right? But for me, I was kind of the stubborn one. So God had to kind of break me. I was the one that was super strong, resilient in a lot of ways, had to be, I was a survivor in a lot of ways. And so I love the Lord. Like, I know that because like I used to write songs and I had all these poetries and letters to God. Like there was this love, but there wasn't this Lord of all. So if something didn't work, it was okay. It was because God was in control. And so I'm the bad sheep. I'm the black sheep here. Okay, fine. And so, but he's faithful, right? He's gracious and kind. So I think for me, it took a long time. And I would just say that to any mom that feels like her identity is riding on how well her children turn out or how well she does this. This is it's a really hard thing to do. And I'm just going to add this. If you're married to someone who's kind of a perfectionist or what we call very organized, like a person that, why aren't they doing this? Why doesn't your day look like this? Why doesn't school look like this anymore? That makes it even more challenging. And so I think hopefully and prayerfully, together as a couple, you would see like, our school, our home may look different than the classroom first, and then other people. And just having a lower expectation, I think, especially if you're starting out, give yourself a break. Give yourself like years.
Absolutely. Well, and I mean, we never arrive. When you are done homeschooling, it doesn't mean that God has refined you to your perfection. That's far from it.
I'm kind of hoping. Maggie. I think I'm older than most of you here, and I'm like, Lord, we're good, right? Like we're good.
Oh no! I mean, he said, "I only just begun," and he was near the end of his life. So yes, we got a long way to go. Do you got anything to add, Stephanie?
Actually, I enjoyed homeschooling, and I didn't see it as my identity, but I thought I found my people because I spent like a 6-year stint in the corporate world, and I knew those were not my people.
Oh yeah.
But then, got married, had kids, started homeschooling, went to a few homeschool conventions, homeschool groups in the area, and I finally found people that I identified with, and that was really, really helpful for me, like helped forming my identity as. But then it was hard when, start graduating those kids and you start losing that, even when they get older and they're not doing, all the homeschool group activities like we used to.
Right.
So I guess my identity kind of formed that way, and now it's forming a different way. And then throwing a special needs kid in the mix at the end, that created a whole new thing. But I just love homeschooling because I like learning, and it was so much fun. And, the internet was advanced enough to where you could just, whenever there was a question, we would just hop online and look it up. Whereas, in the good old days, we'd have to go to the library and look in the encyclopedias or the atlas or, a book. So it was fun. And although I may have taken that too far, because one of my sons, when he was in high school, he would ask me a question. And so I knew he knew how to go on there and look it up. I'd say, well, why don't you just look it up? He goes, Google is not my mom. You are. I'm asking you. So perhaps I went a little overboard on the technology.
Well, now you'd say ChatGPT, but yes. So knowing that we've all been on this journey, what advice would you have given your younger self, and maybe to the young moms that are listening to us today, that you wouldn't have had in your wheelhouse when you hit those moments of overwhelm? I know for me, God is faithful. That is so hard to believe when you see the chaos and just the pain in this world, and that he's going to make something good. And clinging to truth that you have yet to realize. and to have seen it happen over and over again, and and hearing stories. And now I can go back and I can share stories that God was faithful. God was faithful. God was faithful, in all of these things. And he will be faithful because he has proven himself and over again in so many ways. And he will prove this in your prayers, in your life, in the testimony that he is giving you. I think I needed to hear that more than just feeling always there's so many unanswered things that are going on in my life.
That's a great point. And another thing I would say is God is with you. You are not alone in this. You are not even the one who's most responsible for your kids. God created them. He knows them. He can empower you to understand things that you don't really have the human ability to understand, and that he is always with you. You do not have to do this all on your own and run yourself ragged trying to do everything.
Absolutely.
And I would say if you're like Dawn was mentioning, if you and your spouse aren't on the same page, do the hard work to get on the same page, because it makes a difference. Your kids kind of can see that, and that you're not on the same page. And it's just that contributes to the overwhelm, just knowing that you're not on the same page when it comes to what you're doing, how you're doing. Now, there is some, part of that is because my husband was one who was perfectly happy with doing school at home. And that's not at all my MO for, my own learning, much less trying to, force my kids into that same, that way of learning, when that's not even the way that I learn best. And we didn't take the time to do that. And I wish we would have. I wish we would have, I don't know what the answer would have been, if I would have changed. I tried to change my methodology, but it just wasn't me. And I just wish we would have worked through that a little bit more. But the other thing I would say is take the time to do the most important things, especially if you have a child who's got more severe needs and they're not able to follow a regular curriculum, or if you have health needs that are draining your energy and your time. I think we get too caught up in school instead of education. So think of your child. Education is designed to prepare your child for adulthood, whereas school is kind of what we end up doing day to day. So if you're overwhelmed, you get your mind off of school and get more into the mode of thinking about education. What's important for my child when they graduate? And it's probably not going to be everything you're doing right now.
So true.
Pretty much guarantee that.
And I could kind of give it like a kind of off the tail ends of that. I agree with that so much that I had a parent say this to me yesterday, and it's my heart, is building lifelong learners, right? That's kind of what you're saying there too. Like, how do we instill a love for learning in our child instead of just trying to cram a bunch of information into their brains? How do we create a wholehearted, how do you look at the whole child and learn how they learn, take in that observation? I've told a couple of parents now in my coaching, stop homeschooling your child. Just observe your child. Just sit with your child. Just play with them. Get on the floor with them. Just get to know them a little bit before you try to create this whole plan. And then once you get to know them and you understand, oh, they are a moving learner. They like to learn through moving. Then you can adapt your ideas and your curriculum and everything else around that. But getting to know them and then also asking that question, is this building that curiosity in my child to keep learning, to becoming a lifelong learner? So, and I know all of you, like myself, we're lifelong learners. Like, we're still learning. I'm still taking courses, and I love learning too. And so just being able to pass that down to a child And the last thing I would say too is never get caught up in, oh, they're in third grade, they need to know this in third grade. That's not true. That's not true. Third grade can happen in second grade. Third grade can happen in fourth grade or 10th grade. It's that process. It's building that rhythm of teaching and learning together. So
Yeah.
Well said.
Yeah, I love how this conversation has really gone to faith and joy. An enjoyment of the life that we have been given with our kids, to be at home and to learn with them, and the faith that we are able to share with them as we lean into God and show them by example. So I'd love for you guys to talk to just some ways that parents can anchor themselves in that joy and that faith that have worked for you in the past.
Well, to have life verses.
what's that?
One way is just to have life verses, like our homeschool verses for your life,
Oh, yeah.
your homeschool life, and just things that you fall back on, and knowing your why. If you know your why and it's grounded in the Word of God and what you believe about true education and building character and the skills that they'll need, and then you have verses to back that up, you can pray those verses at any time when you're struggling. You can recite them. You can teach them to your children. You can just use them as your anchor. As well.
That's great. We have such a privilege to have this time with our children. And what is it? Deuteronomy 6, I think, talks about how parents are to teach their children, and it lists, all the different times and places of the typical day. And we have that privilege to do that, to bring God alive in their lives through this journey of homeschooling. That's really what it's like. Math is great, English or whatever, but that's really what's going to affect their eternity, And I had a verse that came to me early in my homeschooling that literally I had scrolling across my computer screen for 16 years. And it's faithful is he who calls you, and he will also bring it to pass. He calls you. A calling is when God has a purpose for your life, and a purpose that he equips you to do. So he doesn't just say, oh, go do this in your own strength. He says, do this in my strength. And that's why this particular verse, it says, he will bring it to pass. And so I needed that daily reminder to do that. And then, of course, we really can't overlook that we can't exist without the spiritual nourishment that we need. So making your first thing in the morning at least some bite of God's word. It doesn't have to be chapters. You don't have to do the year reading of the Bible and plan, but get a little bit of that, whatever your schedule allows, and then let that saturate your mind with some nugget from that. Let it just saturate your mind throughout the day. Keep it on the top of your, in your focus as you go about that day.
Yeah. Yeah.
I know for me, it's just been a time of being honest before God, like in my prayers, in my journaling to God, writing letters to God, him writing letters back to me. Try that one. That's really interesting. Dear daughter, and what does God want? What's on your heart that God wants to say to you? But practicing authenticity and honesty before the Lord. Like sometimes we think we have to behave a certain way because, Christians should be joyful. Lord, I'm not joyful. This is really hard. I'm not sure I'm qualified to do this. Please help me. Please confirm for me, asking God to show up for you. But I think that's probably where I try to do too much on my own instead of crying out.
Yep. We need him, but we pretend we don't. And all he wants us to do is come to him with all of our needs. That's really true.
Yeah. And that's what keeps us really grounded is his truth. And because the world messes us up so bad, tells us so many lies, shifts us to the wrong place. I was praying about that this morning, and I was like, oh, just keep my focus on you. I feel like I'm being like, I was reading a verse about, God is anchoring you, and he is an anchor for our soul. And there's just so many tides. And even if I like try to be quiet, my brain is like going in circles. And and it's like, that's the only thing is if I just focus on God and I just worship him, then I can be anchored and I can feel the calm and his peace. And we have to shift our eyes off of the things of this world. No matter how much chaos is going on in your home, you can still turn and look at him. And he is there. Like Annie, you said, he is with us. And it's so easy to get overwhelmed because of the things that are swirling in our lives and that pull our eyes away from the true place that they should be. And that's on our loving Father, our, Jesus, our friend, and the Spirit that just guides us through all of the decisions we have to make. And we have no idea how to make them, but he is there and he can guide us, and it'll all be good. That was, the verse that I clung to is that God will make all things good, because right now I'm making huge messes. And if he can clean it up and make it look good on the end, we're good.
And don't let the enemy tell you you're messing up your kids, because you're not. Just bringing them home, even if you just sat and looked at them all day, it's a lot of times better than what's going out.
Yeah.
Going on.
We don't know the end either. Like, we don't know where the end of that story is. It could be years from now that we might see that, or, in heaven we'll realize something. But just trust God with the end, wherever it is.
Absolutely.
Annie, you always make me want to cry every time I listen to you. I'm like,
I wasn't going for that.
Walking devotional. And I'm like, can I just have coffee with you sometime?
I wish.
We all
make that happen one of these times.
We have to have virtual coffees. So yes.
Right here.
Well, yeah. Well, thank you, ladies, for this amazing conversation. And I want to thank all of you for joining us for this, because you are why we do this. We could all be going our own ways and be content with the lessons that God has taught us, but we know that we're called to share. And that's why we do this. And that's why we host this podcast, because we love you. And we know that the roads God has taken us down, the hard places we have been, have given us wisdom to be able to share. And that's what it's really all about. And it was something I know in my life I did not have. And I wished I would have had resources like this. And so
you're making me cry.
So yes, I appreciate you, ladies, and you, our community. We are here to support you. Definitely check out these ladies and all of their resources. I know Dawn does consulting, not only on the team at spedhomeschool.com, but she does coaching too, and really getting in and working alongside parents, like for the long haul, which is something that our consultants don't do. We are basically there to kind of help you get started. But if you need a coach who is with you for a long time, Dawn is there for you. Stephanie has some amazing curriculum, especially if you have kids that really struggle with learning, like just the basics, and how do I even teach a child that we actually just had an episode a while back on how to teach a nonverbal child how to read and write. And so great expert in that area. And Annie writes for Crosswalk Magazine, is an amazing author. It has so many resources. So definitely tap into her resources too. And Leilani, who will be with us next time when we do another group conversation. She has an amazing podcast channel, Living with Eve, and she offers consultations to homeschoolers in Florida who need testing, but also she is one of the SPED homeschool consultants as well. So these ladies do amazing things. I am just the host. I keep everything going together. Yes. But
You're the visionary. You have vision.
Absolutely.
I'm an artist now.
So, yeah. Well, thanks all for joining us for this real and raw conversation today. We hope you feel seen, encouraged, and reminded that you are not alone. In this episode, if this episode resonated with you, or you thought of another parent who might be in the thick of it, go ahead and share this this recording or this video. These conversations are meant to be a lifeline, a reminder that overwhelm is part of the journey. It's not the end. And as always, if you're looking for more practical resources and heartfelt encouragement, make sure to visit us at Homeschool Heroes at spedhomeschool.com to find free downloads, support groups, stories from other families who get it. Be sure to check out more episodes also of Empowering Homeschool Conversations wherever you listen. And remember, you're doing a sacred work, and we're cheering you on every step of the way. Until next time, keep homeschooling boldly and confidently, and we'll see you next week. Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
This has been Empowering Homeschool Conversations, provided by SPED Homeschool, a nonprofit that empowers families to home educate diverse learners. To learn more, visit spedhomeschool.com